Hello, everyone. Welcome to SJS Writes, one-on-one author interview series. I'm Shawnee Smith, founder of SJS Writes. This evening, I am excited to introduce you to our guest, Lakisha Johnson. Lakisha is a Memphis-born product of a large family and God-fearing woman who has been writing since 2012. She is a self-published author who has written over 35 works that include novels, devotionals, and journals. Lakisha covers topics such as God, hope, restoration, faith, overcoming abuse, marriage, love, loss, grief, and so much more. She writes realistic stories to reach the hearts of those who may be struggling with their faith, relationship with God, or find themselves in a tough situation. Lakisha's latest series, What Did You Vow? And Almost Destroyed, are ranked among Amazon's top 100 best-selling of the African American Christian fiction genre. She's also had the privilege to win some book awards and be featured in magazine publications over the course of her dynamic career. Not only is Lakisha an author, she is a college graduate, senior business analyst, wife, mother, grandmother, pastor, and devotional blogger. Ask her and she'll tell you it's not just writing, it's ministry. Welcome, Lakisha, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited you were able to join.
Yes.
Lakisha, who or what inspired you to become a writer?
Honestly, I never set out to be a writer. I never even saw this as part of what God had for me. So when I began this writing, it was just something that I did at the spur of the moment. And of course, during that time, I wasn't writing Christian fiction. So it was something that I just did at the spur of the moment. And the book was called When the Vows Break, when it was anything but godly. And but it ended up turning into something more. So from that book, so I will always say that God inspired me. He is the one who inspired me to write, but I never thought that writing would be a part of the plan for me. It's just something I never saw for myself. So I can say that now, looking back, it was nothing but God who set up this journey, this to be part of the journey, because I didn't realize it then, but that He had it being a part of ministry that I would eventually go into. Because I started writing in 2012, and then I didn't get into ministry in 2014. So I see then that it was actually God inspiring.
So God inspired for also not only just to being a writer, but to actually publish the writing in forms of novels, devotionals, and journals.
Right.
So like one thing led into the next.
Yes, because again, when I started writing in 2012, I wrote When the Vows Break. No, I'm sorry. It was called A Secret Worth Keeping. So from A Secret Worth Keeping, so that ended up being like a 5-part series. But then in 2016, God would shut me down, so I didn't write anything. And that was with a traditional publisher. And then in 2016, he would shut me down. I couldn't write anything, not knowing that he was shifting me to Christian fiction. And so in 2018, I began to release Christian fiction books, and didn't know how it was going to be received, because I went from writing stuff that wasn't godly to writing stuff that was godly. So I didn't know how that would actually be received, but it was received well. And in that year, I was releasing a book every 45 days. And because I realized then that was what God had for me all along. And so when I eventually got the rights back to A Secret Worth Keeping and Camille's Story, I ended up flipping those to Christian fiction. What we have now was When the Vows Break and Shattered. So those books were, when I got them back, I ended up changing them over to Christian fiction.
That's outstanding. You were able to make that transition. And like you said, most Christians don't start off being a Christian. It's always a journey along the way. So I think that's really good that you're able to make that shift.
Right, right, and that's why I tell people that I don't write clean Christian fiction. A lot of people think that Christian fiction has to be clean, where you're not dealing with cursing, or you don't have sex scenes and all those type of things. But I tell people all the time that God meets us where we are, and sometimes it isn't always clean, because when God meets us where we are, we're broken, we're still dealing with things, we still have anger issues and all those type of things. So I don't write what somebody would think of as traditional Christian fiction, and I tell people that I write realistically, because not everything has a happy ending, and so I don't want to write to that, because I told God that if you allow me to write this, then if I can reach one person on the pages of a fiction book, then I do it. So regardless, so whatever it is. And you got some people who, you got some Christians who go through anger. You got some Christians who may find themselves ain't all the way there yet. So they're still dealing with some stuff. They're still dealing with sin, and still dealing with darkness. So that's what I portray in my books. I write realistically, even though I know they're fiction. I still write to a point to where when somebody pick up that book, they can be able to relate, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. No, it may be some darkness in there, because that's what we encounter on this journey. So I don't write clean Christian fiction and I'm okay with the people who with it and the people who not. I have some people who don't get down with it, and I'm fine with that. So I write for the people who do.
Yeah, you write to your audience, and that's
Right,
important as a writer,
right,
to identify your audience.
right.
Lakisha, in your latest 3-book series, What Did You Vow? It highlights the relationships of 3 married couples who deal with issues including abuse, deception, and financial difficulties. What was your motivation to focus on these issues specifically?
The wedding vows, and because I realized that a lot of people don't pay attention to what they're vowing to. We're used to these traditional vows that aren't biblical, but it's what we're used to, what we were raised with, what people automatically gravitate to when we're getting married, and people don't even realize what they're vowing to. So when God gave me this series, He gave it to me a while ago, so I had to jot it down in my notes, and I just started. So I'm going to complete this series with maybe 3 additional books. Deal with the remaining parts of the vows, but I realized that people don't understand what they vow to. And so that's why when I do weddings, I always ask, do you want the traditional vows, or can I tweak them a little? Because you have to know what you're vowing to, because God will hold us accountable to the things that we vow. And a lot of times we don't know that. And so I think when God gave me that, it's because of that reason. People don't know what it means to have and to hold, or it sounds good to say for richer or for poor, or sickness and health, or forsaking all others to death do us part, but we don't know when that thing comes to pass, because then it shows up in your marriage and you're ready to call quits. But no, this is what you vowed. You vowed this, and so that's why I named it "What Did You Vow?" Because a lot of times we don't know. And so I think God gave me that particular series for that reason.
Just as a follow-up of what you just said, do you have couples that come in with their own vows and then you review them with them before the ceremony?
The few weddings that I've done, no, the few weddings I've done, I've always did the vows, and I don't do traditional unless that's what they ask for, because I believe in tailoring the vow to the couple, and so and that just depends on who the couple is, because I wouldn't do the same vows for somebody who's renewing a marriage, or somebody who's young, or somebody who's so. It depends on the couple as how I tailor the vows. But I want them to have an understanding of them, when I do weddings, I always break that down to, this is a commitment that y'all making. It's not just a commitment to each other, y'all making this commitment to God. And God holds you to your commitments. God holds you to your vows. So be careful what you vow when you don't know what you're vowing, because He will bring it to your remembrance. So don't be vowing something just because you in need or you're desperate, because God will hold you to it. And so that's why I think He gave me this particular series for that particular reason.
And also in your other series, Almost Destroyed, the characters Ava and Andre, they have a complex toxic relationship
Mhm.
where Andre has been emotionally abusive to Ava.
Mhm.
I mean, for over 10 years.
Mhm.
Why do you think women endure this type of abuse for so long?
Some of it's comfortability. And even for Ava, Ava was at a place where she was already broken. She didn't have, she was already broken. She didn't know what true love meant, and so for her, staying in that, because for her it was stable at the point at that moment, and so it worked. So it worked for her up until the time where she found her footing, and to be able to say, no, I'm not going to accept this again. I'm not going to accept this from you, even though I've been accepting this all this time. And sometimes we stay in places that we've outgrown. We stay in places that hurt us. We stay in places that mean us no good because we're comfortable there, or we're loyal and don't want to rock the boat, or because people have been there for us when we needed them, and we don't, and we feel guilty if we leave. But sometimes, and in the case of Ava found herself in this toxic relationship, knowing it was toxic all along, and she just didn't know how it was going to play out until she eventually told him no for the first time. And so, but we can sometimes stay in places because we're comfortable, don't want to rock the boat. It's been working, so we don't want to. So we just feel like that's what. No, it ain't really been working, but it hasn't been. It ain't been good, but you don't want to move because you think that if I make some changes, then this is what it's going to require of me. And when we're comfortable, we don't want to change, and that's what Ava found herself.
Yeah, comfortability, and then also the fear
Mm-hmm.
of not being able to find someone else.
Mm-hmm. Because it had been indoctrinated in her mind by him that nobody else will want her. Calling you names, and so you when you break a person's self-esteem, they'll feel like I can't find nobody else, or I can't do any better, so I stay here, or nobody else will want me because I look like this, or I've been through this, or I have scars and all those type of things. So, and he knew that if he continued long enough, that because he was fine with everything that he was doing, because he knew that she was broken. He knew that she didn't feel worthy of herself until she came to her senses and realize I can do better than this. Even though I know what you said, I know that that's not what God has for my life. And sometimes it takes that, but she stayed because she was comfortable.
Lakeisha, what is your advice to those who are currently in abusive relationships?
Get out, find somebody. So it's not as easy as we say. I've never been in an abusive relationship. I've never had the point where I was afraid of my husband, or I had to walk around on eggshells because of, so I've never been in that place. So I take if somebody were to come to me and ask for advice of what do I need to do in this abusive relationship, the first question I ask is, what do you want to do? Because sometimes, we can say get out, we can say leave, and that person's not ready yet. So the first question we have to ask is, what do you want? If this is something that you want, are you ready to leave? Because regardless of how we feel on the outside, if we haven't been through it, or if we're not going through it, we don't know what a person is dealing with. And because some people stay because when it's good, it's good. And they're ready to leave when it's bad. And so that's why you have to ask them the question, what do you want? Because it's easy to say leave. It's easy to say, because I'll tell anybody, God did not make us to the point of where love is supposed to hurt. And so anybody who is in an abusive relationship needs to get out of it. Especially if you don't see the person who is being the abuser willing to change. Because one or two things will happen. You will either find yourself conforming to that abusive person, and then you will find yourself subjecting somebody else to the abuse that you're receiving. Or you'll get to a place to where you've taken enough, all you can take, and you're ready to get to leave because you know there's something greater for you. So it has to be a decision that the person makes, because it's easy for me to tell somebody to leave when I don't know what they're going through. It's easy for me to tell somebody you shouldn't be dealing with that. They know it. So, I mean, they know that, what they're dealing with is not what they should be dealing with. They know that where they are is a toxic place. They know where they are is a place. They know it. And they don't need somebody saying, you need to leave. They already know it. But we have to be a sounding board to say, okay, so what do you need and what can I do to help? And if that's not something that we're willing to do, we need to hush. Because it's easy for us to say leave when we don't know what they're dealing with. So if I have to give somebody some advice, I say do what's best for you in this time. Yes, you need to leave, but you need to be able to leave when you know you're at a point of not going back, because it's easy to pack up your stuff when you're mad, and then a couple of days later, because he's sending roses or gifts, or because he's promising you that he won't do it again, and then you go right back, or you get your family involved, and you run the risk of getting somebody else hurt for somebody that you're gonna go right back to. And so those are the type of things we have to know the person's mindset of the one who's being abused, because it's easy to say leave, but the real question has to be, are you ready to leave? What can I do to help you, or what do you need from me? Because sometimes they don't need your advice. They just need a sounding board at the moment because they're not ready to leave, or they just need a place to crash for the night because they haven't found the strength or the courage to leave. And we have to be okay with that, because sometimes they already know what they're going through. They don't need you to remind them. Sometimes they just need the sounding. They just need you to listen. And so any advice for anybody that's going through an abusive relationship is to find the courage to love you more than you love the one who's abusing you. Because once you get to a place of loving you more, you'll find the strength to then put you first, and then leave. Your children are involved. That makes it even worse.
Sure. Thank you. That is sound advice. Lakisha, what advice would you give to writers who are hesitant to publish their work because of fear of being ostracized?
I said, I penned a devotional before called, and I titled it "Writing isn't for wimps," and that was years ago. But I tell people all the time, you have to have thick skin, because when you're publishing something that's public, then you're now opening the door for people to have comments and opinions about it. So you have to be at a place of knowing that whatever this is that you're writing, that you'll stand by it, regardless if it's a 1-star or a 5-star. Because not everybody's gonna like what you publish. Not everybody's gonna support it. Not everybody is gonna have good things to say about it. So you have to get to a place as if you know this is what you've been called to write it. Regardless of however you think folks gonna feel, however you feel that folks gonna ostracize you, because there's some topics that people write about that need to be wrote about. A lot of the things that I write about in Christian fiction, I've never been through. But I know that God was calling me to write it because it's conversations we need to have. I wrote Behind Closed Doors that's dealing with domestic violence between a pastor and a first lady, because that's something we don't talk about. Just like Ava, Ava was going through what she was going through, but those are conversations that we don't have. We talk about in I'm Not Crazy, is Savannah, who's a first lady who's going through postpartum depression. But she felt like that she couldn't go through depression because of how people would feel about her as being a first lady. Because we think just because we have these titles and these positions that we don't go through nothing. And so a lot of the things that I discussed in the books, or the topics that I write about, is stuff that haven't gone through, but it's because people need to hear it, or need to be able to say, okay, we need to have these conversations, because mental illness is a conversation that we need to have in the church. Abuse is a conversation we need to have in the church. Financial difficulties is discussions we need to have in the church. All those type of things, because that's what we expect people to spend a lot of their time on Sunday. We expect people to do, and everything that we go through is something the stuff that's already happened before. And if we don't get to a place of being comfortable with what we've been called to write, then we'll never be able to write anything. Because had I been worried about what people say, a lot of the stuff that God gave me to write, I wouldn't write. So I'll tell anybody, if you've been called to write whatever it is, and you know this is what you've been called to write it. Despite what you think people may say, despite what you think people may feel, because not everybody's going to like what you put out. but there's a target audience for what it is that you will write, and you have to find the target audience. You have to find the people that you're meant to write to, and you have to market to them, because not everybody's gonna like it. And so if you have something to write, regardless of the opinions you think you'll get or being ostracized, write it and be comfortable and strong enough and committed enough to stand by what you write. Because if I took down every book that got a low rating, I wouldn't have any up. Yeah, and so, and I used to be moved by those, but then I got to the point when I say it's not for everybody, and I got to be okay with that, because I have some people say that it's too many scriptures, or this book got sermons in it, like it's not a Christian fiction, or I had somebody to say one of the books that I wrote, it wasn't fully Christian fiction, but it was dealing with infidelity with a couple who was two women, and the person had a problem with it being two women, but you didn't have a problem with one of them cheating with a man. So you can't pick and choose. You left a review saying you're writing about a same-sex marriage, but you got a problem with same-sex marriage, but you don't have a problem with cheating. It don't make sense. If you're gonna have a problem with a sin, have a problem with all sin.
Right. Yeah. Sin is a sin.
Yes. And so that's why you have to get to a point to where if you know that you've been led to write something, write it, and then find the strength and the courage to stand by it.
It should be unapologetic. That's
You have to be. You have to be, because you have some people who leave bad reviews just to leave them. You have some people who gonna leave bad reviews because it doesn't feel right to them going what they're going, and it may be because it just attacked your spirit of what you're going through, and they'll leave a bad review, or they'll leave a bad review because of whatever it is, and because again, not everybody's gonna like everything you publish, and you have to be okay with that, and that's why you have to stand by whatever it is you write. So if you have a book that's to be written, write it.
Lakisha, what are 3 takeaways that you would like readers to obtain from your published works?
That God can meet us where we are, that it matters not what we go through. God can still see about us, and that some things that we need to break away from. And I say break away from because, again, I deal with different topics, like I deal with grief, I deal with depression, I deal with abuse, and I deal with narcissistic relationships and all that type of thing. So whenever I write, I pray and ask God to let me have the heart of the character that I'm writing about, so that I can reach the heart of the people who's reading it. So anytime that I release a book, I don't release it just because I want to say I have this many books released. I release it because I know that there's somebody who needs the story. And so even like this book 4 that I'm working on, for What Did You Vow in Sickness and in Health, it's taken me a while to write it because I want to be sure that what I'm writing reaches the person that it needs to reach. So I don't want, and again, it goes back to me not writing clean Christian fiction, because I want to be able to reach the person that it needs to reach. I want to be able to reach the broken, or somebody who may not have tried God in a while because they feel like that my past is too dirty for me to be able to reach God. And I know that this is fiction books, but I tell God, if I can reach one person on the page of a fiction book, then I've done what you told me to do. And I get inboxes, and I get emails and all the time from people who saying, this me, I was reading my story on the page of this book, or can you pray for me, or I want to renew my relationship with God because I've read that book. And if one person does that, then I've done what God has said for me to do. So what I want people to take away from is that God is not a God who will release you out to your own just because you made some mistakes. That God still sees, He still hears, and He still cares no matter what we go through. But and so that's if I had to do the 3 takeaways, it would be that God still loves you, God still cares for you, and God hasn't forgotten you. In spite of what it feels like, that God can still meet you where you are, regardless of whatever it is that you're going through. And And that's what I do, and that's what I write about. I can't be moved by, who's going to like this, or will people support this because I'm talking about this subject. No, if it's what God gives me, I write about it. And again, a lot of times, even with Ava's story was one of the ones that I didn't set out to have that as a two-part book, but the conversation never stopped. And so dealing with her and what I had to do with her, I had to research all of this because again, it's stuff I hadn't gone through. And I dealt with in her book trauma bonds, and that was something that I had to research, because I never realizing how we bond with trauma. And when we bond with trauma, we carry it over until it doesn't matter whatever relationship we're getting in, we're going to carry it over. So that means we'll find ourselves dealing with the same thing over and over again until we destroy that bond that we have with trauma. So a lot of things that I deal with is stuff that I haven't gone through, but I ask God, okay, if this is what you want, then you give me what you would have me to write, and you give me that person's heart so that I can feel it and to be able to reach the heart of the person who's reading it.
Lakisha, what current or upcoming projects or events would you like to share with the audience?
I'm currently working on the part 4 of What Did You Vow? In sickness and in health. So my plan. Don't know if God said the same. So my plan is to have book 4 released in the next few weeks. I'm hoping to have it done within the next few weeks, and then have book 5 and 6 out before at least I'm going to say June, to have books 5 and 6. So I am working to finish that series, and then I have plenty of book titles in my notes. So I don't know what's after the next 3 books of What Did You Vow, but that's currently what I'm working on.
Lakisha, how can our audience connect with you and purchase your books?
I'm on all social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Even though I hardly use Twitter, I use Facebook and Instagram more than I use anything. I'm on TikTok. I also have a page. I have an author page on TikTok that I don't really use, that I'm gonna try to build. But I also have a page on TikTok called Dear Sis, where I do the 60-second devotionals called Dear Sis. So I have that on TikTok. So I'm on Amazon, so they can find any book on Amazon. And sometimes I have hard copy, or I have paperbacks that they can contact me directly. If I have them on hand, then I send them out, signed, if I have them on hand. But they can find all of them on Amazon. They can find, and you can find me on all social media platforms. The majority of my names on social media is Lakisha Johnson, or the author Lakisha.
And I'll be sure to put your information, your social media, and your webpage and other links, book links, so the audience can definitely keep in contact and purchase your books.
Mm-hmm.
I thank you so much for joining us. It's been a dynamic conversation, and I look forward to reading many more of your books.
Thank you. I thank you for having me. I thank you for allowing me to share your platform. Not everybody has to be nice enough to extend the invitation. So I appreciate you having me to join your platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.